Here we see the elusive human being, trapped in an endless loop of pointless conversation. The human has become increasingly frustrated as his means of escaping grows more and more unlikely. Alas, he is doomed to a life of head nods, oh reallys, and damn, that's crazies. All because...
I think somewhere between the creation of the internet
and the onslaught of social media brain rot, we lost our ability to effectively communicate. It's funny how there's more words than ever before, and yet less is actually being said than ever before. I'm not saying I want to
talk about like the political and economic state of the world right now
or anything, but it would be nice to talk about something other than how difficult that last assignment was or how shitty the weather has been. And I don't even want to get started on TikTok dialogue, but I had to watch this video, so you do too.
Brother Rizzler, you're so skibberty, you're so phantom tax. I just wanna
kill myself. So how did we get here? I mean, surely conversations didn't always feel so repetitive and lathered with filler words, right? Just look at how teenagers in the 1960s communicated.
I believe the thing that keeps the world going is that people never can achieve anything to its fullest. You know, otherwise if people could achieve everything, it would have to come to an end.
It's hard for me to believe that we used to be so articulate in our speaking. There were no filler words, constant slang, or excessive abbreviations. I understand that language evolves, but is it really evolving if everyone ends up sounding more stupid? Over time, words begin to lose their significance. New words are created to keep up with the changing dialects and reduce attention span of the newest generation. Eventually, seeing who can use more of these words in conversation becomes a battle. I think a perfect example of this is with swear words. When I was little, I thought there was nothing worse in the world than saying a bad word.
even the uttering of a what the hell or god damn it would send an uncomfortable shiver down my spine.
But by the time I got to middle school, I entered with this pure of heart mindset and left so used to these words
That everything had to be described with a fucking before it.
In elementary, if you swore, you were considered edgy, the troublemaker. In middle school, if you didn't swear, you were considered a loser. And this is coming from a state with a 60% Mormon population. Modern slang works the exact same way. A new term comes out that everyone starts saying. So much so that the word ends up losing all meaning and every sentence feels empty. We continue to dumb down the language for ourselves until it is so dumb that the average person can no longer understand it.
Or at least those with a fully developed brain.
And then again, who knows what a fully developed brain will even look like in 10 years. We blame the lack of understanding between generations on outdated ways of thinking, but a good portion of our societal divide is due to the way we speak. I mean, how the fuck is a 79-year-old Vietnam veteran supposed to know what it means to rizz up a baddie with a fat gat, no cap? Oh, I cannot believe I just made myself say that. Can you imagine the reaction if you said this to a 15th century serf? They'd either have a stroke or think you were possessed by the devil, or maybe even both. And this is a lighthearted example, but the same can be applied to a larger, more serious scale. If you want change so badly, maybe stop yapping on Twitter and articulate a real professional sounding argument. I think if so-called activists didn't talk so excessively about their cause, they might end up getting more support. Unfortunately, most of them like to force feed their cause to the public like a frustrated parent trying to get their 6-month-old to eat a spoonful of green bean Gerber. I'm in the same generation as these motherfuckers, and even I don't know what the hell they're talking about most of the time. But our generation can't look like the morons. After all, we're the ones who are gonna save the world.
We've lost the concept of scarcity when it comes to conversation.
Repeating something over and over again doesn't make it any more funny or any more true. As Epictetus once said, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. Oh, Epictetus, if only you could see the world today. The modern day conversation is one person talking while the other person focuses solely on what they're going to say next. They'll give a half listen, just enough for them to pretend like they get what you're saying, but too little for them to actually give a fuck. We've all been guilty of this at one point or another. I mean, sometimes we figure what we have to say is just more important than whatever's coming out of the other person's mouth. And shit, maybe it is, but our conversations won't go anywhere if we don't listen. If I wanted to hear 2 people talking over each other without listening, I'd tune into a political debate, or an episode of The Maury Show.
September, get it right, get it right.
August 14th.
Yeah, because he was a priest.
You are not.
It's as if the weight of no noise is so unbearable for some people that they would rather just ramble on and on about nothing. Even interrupting one another is for some reason favorable to the perceived hell that is silence and conversation. I guess our concept of awkwardness has been misdirected towards any moment that goes quiet, no matter how small. If there's silence, it must be filled. And what better way to eradicate any speechlessness than the great 3 filler words? Like, literally, and I cannot stand when people overuse these words. Sometimes it's so bad that all you end up focusing on is the like being said after every 3 words. The worst part is they serve no other function than to fill moments where there would be a natural silence. But God forbid there be even the smallest pause while you gather your thoughts on what to say next. Oh, and when the person you're talking to begins to lose interest because you're boring, repetitive, and a ranty machine, try to add more detail by sprinkling some literalies in there. And I know people usually end up saying these words subconsciously, but that doesn't make it any better. All it means is that we don't actively think about what we are saying. No wonder people talk too much. The only real fix is to accept that your conversation won't always have momentum. But I find that if you have a real personal connection with someone, you should be able to sit in silence together. Sometimes there just isn't anything to say, and that's fine. These types of connections supersede the need for pointless dialogue. And it's funny because the average person looking in on interaction like this would probably think, oh, look how awkward they are. It's not awkward, it's just not forced. And that's a rarity in today's society. And sure, we can point and shake the fist at social media for rotting the minds of millions, but I think there's a more glaring issue when it comes to the modern day conversation. And that's the fact that most people live uninteresting lives. I wouldn't have much to talk about either if all I did was sit around doom scrolling through TikTok and donating to female Twitch streamers. Those with nothing to talk about end up talking the most. We need to appear interesting to others, even if we aren't. And what better way to appear interesting than to act like you have so many things to talk about? These types of people are the ones that like to hype themselves up the most. They will spend 30 minutes running on a treadmill and talk about how they're going to be the next David Goggins. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think David Goggins sleeps 14 hours a day and spends the remainder playing Fortnite. The only exercise you do is going to grab your DoorDash order. If you're one of those quick fix types of people and you find yourself talking too much, my most immediate advice would be to become more interested. Pick up some sort of hobby and find individuals who are also into it. It won't necessarily solve the problem of you overspeaking, but at least everyone around you will be interested in what you're saying. We are selfish enough to ignore excessive chatter if it's about something we enjoy. Speaking of something we enjoy, most of us way too much. Send a kid to school and they will become fully educated within 12 years. Give a kid a phone with a social media account and they will become an expert in everything overnight. At least that's the way they act. Social media is one of the biggest reasons people mistake their blatant ignorance for fact. What other place are you going to find 14-year-olds commenting about global affairs and posting how to get rich guides? Like, bro, isn't your lunch break over? I think it's time to get back to algebra class. The algorithms these apps use are fucking ridiculous. To keep us hooked, they'll provide exactly what we want to see on our feeds. This means that we almost always end up on the side where people share similar opinions to our own. Unfortunately, when you have millions of people backing up whatever you say, it can get to your head. This has created an interesting phenomenon where the ordinary person can say something and believe it to be more important and more factual than anyone else's take. So we end up with this battleground where no one knows what they're talking about, but both sides believe they do. This leaves us with an ocean of misinformation that people will gladly dive into. There's no more seeing both sides. Opinions turn into facts and facts into opinions. If you disagree with someone, you're wrong. Plus, everyone feels the need to share. I'm all for freedom of speech, but for the love of God, could you please at least do a little research before you go spit the wildest, most absurd take? And keep private shit off the internet. No one needs to hear about the diabolical things you do in the bedroom. I wonder how many FBI agents have resigned after being sickened by the digital footprints we've left. And to the FBI agent watching right now, welcome. Glad to have you here. Marcus Aurelius once said, the opinion of 10,000 men is of no value if none of them know anything about the subject. If he were around today, he likely would have added, or the opinion of self-appointed experts on social media. It's crazy how everything in society has become perfectly contradicts the philosophies of some of the greatest minds this planet has ever seen. But that's a topic for another day. For now, it's time to end this video before it becomes about me. Who am I kidding? It already is. Do you feel like people talk too much?
I would say yeah, because other people just like keep talking. They're just talking and talking and talking. And sometimes I just feel like, can you just shut up?